Hello, welcome back to another Stone Evolutions video. This run objective is pretty clear. I can only use Pokemon that evolve by way of stones. For those of you familiar with the early game of Black and White 2, you would know that in the early routes, the only Stone Evolution Pokemon is a Sunkern, making the first couple of hours of the game absolutely filled with suffering. But I digress. Let's get the rules out of the way first. Number 1. Any Pokemon that faints must be permaboxed. Number 2. I can only catch the first relevant Pokemon encountered in each area. Number 3. No items during battles. Number 4. No overleveling. And number 5. I have to set the battle mode to set. No additional rules for the starter this time. I've decided to only pick Oshawott. The reason for that would be because we would ditch the Oshawott for our official starter, the starter being this absolutely godforsaken Sunkern. I figured a grass versus grass type situation would be fair. Before we start though, if you like the type of content and videos here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and do the typical YouTube algorithm stuff. It really helps with the channel growth. Or you can leave the usual roast comment. We were blessed with the name Fool once more, and we gave our rival and neighbor Hugh an equally fantastic name, Who. The game opened with Professor Juniper calling our mother, bestowing upon our humble self a highly coveted Pokedex. Our mother called us and told us to go meet Bianca, who acts as Professor Juniper's aide. We met Who outside our house and went to find Bianca together. We found her and got a Pokemon, Nut. We got the Pokedex and battled Who and emerged victorious. There were a bunch more early game shenanigans that happened after, including meeting Alder. He wanted to train us, but we had to deliver this town map to Who first. Before that, we officially caught our starter for this run, a Sunkern. She was named Sunnut. We painfully leveled with Sunnut for a bit to boost some special attack stat, and moved on. Who wanted to battle upon meeting us again, and we couldn't say no. Now, here's basically what went on in every battle involving Sunnut. Because she has absolutely horrible stats, we almost always had to put our opponents to sleep first, and then stack growths to actually be able to deal damage, and that was what we had to do with Who's Snivy. We had to put the Snivy to sleep every chance we get, so we can stack growths. This battle ended with a lucky crit, but it was still painful nonetheless. After the battle, we ran around looking for a Herdier alongside a very agitated Who, and had our first encounter with Neo Team Plasma. We met Alder again on the way back, and he told us to battle his students, which was a royal pain in the ass. Both the elemental monkeys here are resistant against Sunnut, so we had to assume the same strategy again, with a much higher risk of being absolutely annihilated by bad RNG. Thankfully, we just managed to scrape by with a win. Alder told us to go back to Asperisha to challenge the first gym, and we found that Sharon was indeed the gym leader. Now, you might be wondering, Fool, who's Kernut? What happened to Sunnut? Well, Sunnut died, to this very same Patrat. Kernut is her successor, her third successor. This battle with Sharon required absolutely godly RNG. If I managed to get by the Patrat, then this Lillipup would just absolutely decimate my Sunkern next. And with Grass Whistle only hitting at 55% accuracy, this start of the run was an absolute nightmare. So, back to the list. A list of all my fallen Sunkerns. Sharon wasn't the only wall in this early game, everything else was also a struggle. I've lost to Who once, Alder's student twice, once during grinding, and one that was most painful, once while trying to catch the next encounter, after beating Sharon's gym. But D's Nut story isn't why we're gathered here today. We're here for our dear friend, Floornut. We went up to Sharon and started the battle. It was the same strategy like always as we tried to put the Patrat to sleep. The Patrat immediately woke up the turn after, but that's just the way it is. Absolutely horrible luck. In the end, we managed to stack 4 growths while somehow managing to not die and killed the Patrat. When the Lillipup came out, we wasted no time as we immediately went for the kill, leaving the Lillipup in the orange as he used Work Up. In the next turn, we just barely survived a tackle and finally won the badge. Finally. And then there was Bianca. There was this altercation between an overly ambitious father and a rather stern daughter, but we quickly moved past that. Our sights were set on acquiring a new party member, a Growlithe. We were able to catch it and named it Dognut. The second gym with Roxy was an absolute breeze with Dognut. He absolutely scorched the poison types and we got our second badge. Then there was this bit about us starring in a movie, but this was just tedious. Entertaining the first time around, but it really should be optional. Team Plasma appeared again, and we went with Who to pursue them. All in a day's work. We went up to Roxy's dad after, and we went to Castelia City to continue with our adventure. We found that Berg wasn't in this gym and met Iris, which is as eager as Who to find Team Plasma. The double battle against Team Plasma wasn't that hard, as Dognut cleaned house as usual. Here, we met Berg and was first introduced to Colress. Over at Castelia Park, we ran into this 5% chance encounter, an Eevee. we caught it and named him Nut. The battle with Berg wasn't that special either, as Dognut repeatedly used embers. The Dwebble survived his first ember hit and wasted his turn with a rock polish, which made the battle much smoother. OBS decided to corrupt this file and made about 20 seconds unavailable as Berg sent out his Leaveney. The Leaveney tanked the first ember and hit back with a nervy cut. Dognut survived and was able to safely end the fight. We earned our third badge and looked to continue on our journey. Cole Res wanted to battle us, so we happily obliged. Guess who won the fight? You guessed it, Dognut. More embers. We booked it to the desert and obtained this Firestone for Dognut. We wouldn't evolve Dognut until he was level 39 for Flamethrower and Crunch, but it was good to have it early. Then there was this Join Avenue thing that was just confusing. We entered some inappropriate words and pretended not to have anything to do with the place. In Nimbasa, Dognut almost kicked a bucket in this double battle with Rosa against the subway bosses, but thankfully we made it out. If I had to reset because of something like this, I would have cried. So here I was faced with an incredible dilemma. With my current team, there was no way I could have beaten Alessa. Dognut would not have been able to one-shot any of Alessa's Pokemon and would get absolutely annihilated. All I had left was Nut, who couldn't evolve until much later, and Floornut, who was just a walking memento of pain. Wait. I love you, Floornut. I'm so sorry for anything bad I've said about you. Dognut was back in action right after the gym, mopping up some more of Team Plasma. We encountered this Rosalia at the clearing east of Nimbasa next and caught it. She was named Raidnut. Over at this introduction of Hidden Grottos, Bianca left us with this Minccino, which was caught and named Chinchinut. We were introduced to rotation battles and encountered Team Plasma again, this time discovering the ex-Plasma members who still followed their king, N. Floornut had another beast of a battle against Clay. She stacked 2 growths against the Krokorok and drained her way through all of Clay's team. What a legend. Clay would then invite us to the Pokemon World Tournament after, where we were forced to participate. The tournament itself was easy enough, with Dognut having absolutely no trouble at all against Hu, Sharon, and Cole Rez. We encountered more Neoplasma members and boarded their frigate, where Dognut still had no trouble at all winning battles. We were ejected by the Shadow Triad and went on our way. At Chargestone Cave, I spent a long time grinding for Dust Clouds where they have a small chance of spawning evolution stones. After about 2 hours of running back and forth, I finally scored a Sunstone, Waterstone, and a Thunderstone. With said Waterstone, Nut was finally able to evolve into a Vaporeon. I went back outside Chargestone Cave to grab the shiny stone from this kid. Back in the cave, we found this Tynamo and caught it. He was named Eelnut. We met Professor Juniper for the first time in Mistrilton, and Skyla along with her. After some grinding, Raidnut evolved into a Roserade, upping her firepower. We didn't have any flying Pokemon, so we caught this Tranquil as a fly slave. We caught this Litwick at a tower north of Mistrilton and named him Canut. And with the Firestone, Dognut finally evolved into an Arcanine. Following Dognut was Eelnut, who evolved into an Electric. We used the hard skill to remember Discharge and went on to challenge Skyla for another badge. Eelnut made his battling debut against Skyla, up against her Swoobat. The Swoobat was able to hit twice with Heart Stamps, but Eelnut's Discharge one-shotted it. Skyla Swanna scored a chunky Bubble Beam, but Eelnut was able to survive and one-shotted the Swanna with a Discharge as well. Dognut came in and finished a Skarmory with 2 Flamethrowers. Outside of the gym, Professor Juniper took us to Lentimas Town along with Bianca. We were tasked to go to Opelucid City to talk to Drayden. There was this haunted house bit that was an absolute treat. I really enjoyed this. I hope Game Freak would put more spooky bits like these. We got to Undella Town, where we were ambushed by Huh. I forgot to press record because I absolutely wasn't ready for this rival fight. Raidnut was still in the first slot, so I had to switch to Eelnut, who tanked an Air Slash. The Unfazant defended a Discharge, but the second one took it down. His Superior was next, and Dognut was on the scene once more. Dognut watched the Superior use Coil, and downed it in one go with a Flamethrower. The Simisear was next, but Nut had a pretty easy time with Surf. We fished up a Staryu right after that, naming it Starnut. In preparation for Starnut's evolution, we went back to Aspertia and grabbed this early Waterstone. Then, we experienced some more plot exposition and battled Zinzolin for the first time. We battled alongside Huh, but it was nothing Dognut can't handle. There was this old man who wanted to reach his 1000th battle winning streak in the village, but he got soundly beaten. Kinda felt bad for him. In preparation for Drayden, we made a quick trip back to Lacunosa to buy the Blizzard TM. Starnut ate the Water Stone and evolved into a Starmie. I wasn't quite sure how to battle against Drayden, but I ultimately decided to stick a leftovers on Nut and try to stack workups as many times as I can. Nut has a pretty large HP pool, so in the end Nut was able to tank 3 attacks, even though the last one was a crit, and stack 3 workups. In the next turn, Nut fired off an Aurora Beam and one-shot at the Drudigon. In a surprising turn of events, Nut went first against Drayden's Flygon and one-shot at it as well. And Nut also went first against the Haxorus and absolutely decimated it. Nut absolutely killed this battle and won us the 7th badge. We then experienced some more heavy plot as Opelousas City was under fire from Team Plasma's frigate. The city was frozen and it was up to us and Drayden to fight off Team Plasma. Before anything else though, Eelnut evolved into an Electros. We defeated Zinzolin rather easily with Dognut, and Drayden carelessly exposed the DNA Splicers. The Shadow Triad snatched the Splicer, and the one we rather easily defeated wasn't the one with the important item. Through this very pretty underwater tunnel, we made our way to Himilao City, where we got jump scared by Marlin. At least I did, because I couldn't press record in OBS in time. We solved the water puzzle, and went up to challenge Marlin. He led his Caracosta, and I experimented by leading with Eelnut. Eelnut hit first with Volt Switch, and I switched to Raidnut. Raidnut tanked the Scald, but it barely did anything. Marlin healed his Caracosta, and Raidnut was able to put it to sleep. To whittle some damage to bypass Caracosta's sturdy, Raidnut hit first with Venoshock, and then ended it with a Giga Drain. As for the Wailord and Jellicent, well, things were over really quickly with the Petal Dance. Whew was waiting for us outside of the gym, and we decided to go after Team Plasma. Cole Rez found us next to this Terrakion that was taking a huge dump, and gave us the Cole Rez machine. In preparation for the string of difficult battles, I spent some time grinding my team, both in EV and levels. Cannot, while grinding, evolved into a Lampent. One Dust Stone later, he evolved into a Chandelure. Chinchinut, whom I decided to make use of, evolved into a Chinchino. We would get to see him in action a bit later. We caught up to the frigate after some heavy training, and boarded it with the Hoo after Marlin lowered the bridge for us. The battles in the frigate here really got a lot tougher, but being able to know what Pokemon the enemies used beforehand really helped my team survive through this whole ordeal. It also sped up the time spent on this war panel puzzle, as we didn't spend time guessing which panels belong to which room. We finally removed the barriers, and arrived at the room where Team Plasma was keeping Kyurem, and we were greeted by Zinzolin and his lackey again. Who came in right after us, marking the beginning of the double battle. Dognut was sent out, and just spent the entire battle using flamethrowers until nothing was left. Who Superior also proved useful here, so hats off to Who. The Shadow Triad was called upon again, ejecting us from the frigate once more. Sharon found us on the beach and told us to go to the giant chasm. At this clearing, we witnessed the feud between the old and new Team Plasma. Rude tried his best to break the situation without any violence, but the situation was getting heated. Starnut easily disposed of this Plasma Grunt, and Rude told us to go ahead. We boarded the frigate one final time, and prepared ourselves for a tough series of battle ahead. I had help from Bulbapedia at the start as well, so knowing the battles beforehand made this bit a lot easier. After securing the Plasma card, we entered the correct sequence password and was able to progress. Zinzolin stopped us once more, challenging us one final time. His team was still primarily Ice types, 2 Cryogonals and 1 Weavile. Cannot outsped all 3, and took each of them down in one go with Flame Bursts. Next, we found ourselves toe-to-toe with Colrez, the mysterious scientist we've been encountering this whole time. Colrez specializes in steel types, and here was where our lack of team diversity really pulled us back. Colrez led his Magneton, as I led Cannot. Cannot hit first with Flame Burst, but the Magneton hung on with Sturdy. The Magneton was able to paralyze us, and healed. Cannot was able to hit another Flame Burst, but the Magneton hung on once more with Sturdy. Next, the Magneton scored a Volt Switch and returned to Colrez. Cannot was left paralyzed, unable to attack. I switched for Dognut here, as Dognut tanked the Rock Slide from the Matang. Dognut tanked it well, and took out the Matang with a Flamethrower in the next turn. Colrez sent out his Magnezone next, which hung on with Sturdy as well after a Flamethrower hit. The Magnezone hit a Thunder Wave, which paralyzed Dognut. After tanking a Discharge, Dognut was able to take out the Magnezone. For the Klinklang, I switched back to Cannot, who safely switched in on a Giga Impact. Cannot tanked the Thunderbolt and disposed of the Klinklang with a Flame Burst. When the Beheeyem came out, I switched to Nut, who tanked a Psychic on the switch-in. Nut used Surf, which took the Beheeyem's health to orange. Then, Nut tanked the critical hit Energy Ball, which almost annihilated him. Miraculously, Nut survived and drowned the Beheeyem. The Magneton came back out, and I was sure Nut would outspeed it with a Surf, which it did. We survived this really risky battle with Colress and healed before venturing forth. We went to the next room and encountered the Shadow Triad once again. These battles weren't difficult at all, with Canut and Dognut basically downing all their Pokemon in one go. Whew managed to get his sister's Purloin back in the shape of a Leopard and told us to go face Kyurem. We made our way through the Icing Cave and finally stood face to face with Kyurem and Ghetsis. We were almost killed by Kyurem when N made it at the last minute, saving us from a very violent death. From here, it was all purely cutscenes where Ghetsis made Kyurem absorb N's Zekrom and go berserk. In case you didn't know, Black Kyurem's cry is Baza Kyurem. This battle with Kyurem was the least of our worries though, as Canut basically two-shotted it with Shadow Balls. Ghetsis wasn't too happy about that. He challenged us immediately to a battle, leaving us no room to breathe. He led us Cofragigas, and Canut was on the scene once more. Cofragigas used Protect in the first turn, evading certain death. Canut hit his Shadow Ball after, downing the Coffin Pokemon. Ghetsis sent out his Seismitoad next, and I switched for Raidnut, who tanked an Earthquake on a switch-in. The damage from the Earthquake was safely regained with a Giga Drain, almost healing Raidnut to full health. Next was his Electros, and we switched to Dognut, who tanked an Acrobatics move. Dognut used Flamethrower, which almost killed the Electros. Ghetsis healed, but 2 Flamethrowers later, the eel was down and out. Ghetsis sent out his Drapion next, and I chose to go with Nut as he tanked an Earthquake in the face. Nut used Surf, almost one-shotting the Drapion. Nut survived the Night Slash and ended the Purple Abomination with Surf. Then came his Hydreigon. I might have soiled my pants here. Nut heroically survived with 1 HP and hit back with an Ice Beam that almost killed the Hydreigon in return. I immediately switched for Chinchinut, who evaded a Dragon Rush on the switch. As a final act of disrespect, I made Chinchinut use Wake Up Slap and utterly humiliated the dragon with a cute little chinchilla. Finally, Ghetsis sent out his Toxicroak, which got taken care of easily by Starnut. The Shadow Triad arrived to take Ghetsis away as he went clinically insane, and N made off with his Zekrom. Who caught up with us and was glad to see it all over. He was really supportive of our Pokemon League objective and spurred us on. We met up with N again before the Victory Road, and he cheered us on as he gave us the Waterfall HM. Before we were able to exit Victory Road, Who ambushed us one final time and challenged us to a battle. He led his Unfazant, and I sent Starnut first, who was able to one-shot the bird with an Ice Beam. Next, Huh sent out his Buffalont, and we switched to Raidnut, who narrowly avoided a Megahorn. Thinking back, this was a really risky play, one which I was lucky to not be punished for. Anyway, Raidnut put the Buffalont to sleep and safely ended its life. Huh sent out a Simisear next, and Starnut was back on. Starnut tanked a Flamethrower and surfed the monkey to death. His superior was last, and Dognut had a pretty easy time, taking it out with a Flamethrower. We beat Huh one final time and was given the Thunderbolt HM. Huh was pretty happy with how things turned out and went back to his sister. We made it. We made it to the Pokemon League after so many attempts at breaking through the early game barriers. Here was the team that I brought to the league. Nut the Vaporeon, Starnut the Starmie, Canut the Chandelure, Chinchinut the Chinchino, Raidnut the Roserade, and our puppy buddy, Dognut the Arcanine. We entered the league halls, ready to dominate the Elite Four. We first chose Chantal as our opponent, ready to face her team of ghost types. We went up the stairs and was greeted with a black screen. Figuring this out was harder than the battle itself, which Canut took care of by one-shotting all of Chantal's team with Shadow Balls. We chose Caitlyn next, and she did no better than Chantal. Canut really dominated the first half of the Elite Four in this run. EV training Canut was the best choice I made in this challenge. Next, we went up against Marshall, who let us throw. I sent out Starnut first, as she took care of the Karate Pokemon with a Psychic. Marshall sent out his Mienshao next, and it was taken care of in a similar manner by Starnut. His Sog was then sent out, and I switched for Raidnut, who tanked a payback on a switch-in. Raidnut used Giga Drain after, and recovered most of her health. The Sog hit another payback, which poisoned him on contact. Marshall healed, and Raidnut went for 2 more Giga Drains, ending the other Karate Pokemon. Marshall sent out his last Pokemon, Conkeldurr. I tried to put it to sleep, and almost paid for missing the attack, as Raidnut tanked a Stone Edge, almost losing her life. I switched for Starnut after, who safely tanked a Stone Edge and ended the battle with a Psychic. That was too close for Raidnut. Thankfully, another of my late-game blunders went unpunished again. Then, we went to face Grimesley, the final Elite Four member. He led his Leopard, and I sent out Chinchinut to start the battle. Chinchinut was hit first with a Fake Out, which left him flinched. Cincinnati then hit a wake-up slap, which almost one-shotted the Leopard. The Leopard hit back with an attack, making Cincinnati fall in love with it. Grimesley healed, and Cincinnati missed his turn because he was in love. Cincinnati was able to hit the next one, which left just a bit of health from the Leopard. He was then hit by a Night Slash, which took a substantial amount of health. I knew Cincinnati wouldn't be able to survive the next hit, so I decided to sack him here. However, he decided to fight through his infatuation and ended the Leopard. I guess he wanted some more time in the spotlight. Grimesley sent out his Crafty next, and I switched for Raidnut, who tanked a Brick Break, which didn't do too much. Raidnut used Giga Drain, regaining her health. She was then hit by a critical hit Rock Tomb, but the Giga Drain after took out the Scrafty. Next was Grimesley's Bisharp, prompting a switch to Dognut, which activated Bisharp's Defiant. I almost had a heart attack here, as the Bisharp hit a crit Aerial Ace, but Dognut managed to tough it out. One flamethrower later, the Bisharp was burnt to cinders. Finally, there was only his Crocodile left. I switched for a safe battle with Nut, as my Nut tanked an Earthquake. The Crocodile managed to hit another Earthquake, but it wasn't enough to end the fight. It got ended instead with a chunky Surf. We beat all of the Elite Four and moved on to fight Iris with a full team. Honestly, I didn't think I'd still have my team intact by this point. Before starting the run, the Elite Four battles seemed a lot tougher with the choice of Pokémon I had available. I taught Cincinnati and Starnut Thunderbolt as I made my way to the Champion Halls as a last-ditch preparation. We entered the battle arena and got ready to battle the underage champion. Iris sent out her Hydreigon first, and I sent out my Chinchilla. Cincinnati was equipped with an Expert Belt, so his Wake Up Slap had a little extra in it. Even so, it took barely half of the Hydreigon's health, and Cincinnati ate a Dragon Pulse in the face. Cincinnati wasn't able to tank the critical hit Dragon Pulse, and died to a very anticlimactic death. Rest well, Cincinnati. But, with the damage dealt, it was enough for Starnut to safely end the Hydreigon's life. Iris sent out her Lapras next, and I switched for Raidnut as she tanked a Thunderbolt on the switch. It barely did anything, and I figured I had to go for broke here as Raidnut used Petal Dance. It one-shotted the Lapras, and her Druddigon was next. The Druddigon survived the Petal Dance hit with half health, and hit back with a Rock Slide, which almost annihilated Raidnut. Raidnut hung on, and actually killed the Druddigon in return with her final Petal Dance. Raidnut, you magnificent hero. Iris sent out her Aggron next, and unfortunately, I chose to sack Raidnut here as I took the chance with another Petal Dance. Raidnut couldn't fight through her confusion and killed herself in the process. Rest well, Raidnut. I sent out my Nut next, and this was a very fast finish with a Surf. The Aggron didn't stand a chance. Iris sent out her Haxorus, and I stayed with my Nut as he used an Ice Beam after the Haxorus used a Dragon Dance. Iris healed, and Nut kept at it with the Ice Beam, which almost took out the Haxorus, who hung on with a Focus Sash. My Nut tanked an Earthquake and ended the dragon after that. I stayed with Nut for the Archeops, but Nut went down to the Archeops' Rock Slide. Rest well, my Nut. Starnut came back on again and released an Ice Beam that almost took out the Rockbird. The Archeops hit back with a Rock Slide, but his fate was sealed. Starnut fired off one final Ice Beam, winning us the championship and the run. Honestly, similar to some of my other Stone Evolutions run, this was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I didn't anticipate how difficult early game was with only a Sunkern, and it definitely took a lot out of me. I cannot express the amount of stress I was going through, as I thought I had to give up the run early because I can't get past the first 3 towns. But I stuck through and managed to finish the run, and I'm glad I did it. With that, I hope you enjoyed this video. The Stone Evolutions challenges are still definitely one of my favorites to do. I might take a break from the usual hardcore Nuzlocke format in the next video. I hope you guys will like it. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.